I went with it because Bob really loved the house. So it's a guy's classic, what you call it, colonial Georgian, I think, or something style house. And it appeals to a guy. It's big, it's classic, I don't know, something about it guys go for. So, okay, I said, oh, sure, I can deal with the TLC that this house needs, and mostly it was very neglected. I think I like to have a clear space that I live in, and I don't want to be all over having little pieces like in this house. And I keep thinking about it. So, how much if I lived by myself? Do I need any more than this kitchen and maybe that living room and a bed? And that's it. That's all I need. I don't need all this other stuff.
There's old and run down and worn out, and then there's old with the level of craftsmanship that is harder to find today. It's not so much nostalgia, it's really about work that has integrity and commitment, maybe even love. It's obvious. The way I look at home is I want to feel comfortable enough to do work in it, to either make films or to write. And so to really draw from sort of the nurturing, fine, lovely aesthetics and actually make a lot of work. That's the true goal, is that convergence of nice aesthetic space mixed with a rich best practices that yield creative outcomes. Otherwise, what the hell's the point?
I ripped out a pepper plant because it was being squashed by the mint. These future little peppers. But there's little Japanese eggplant coming. Oh yeah, these are cherry tomatoes. And it was my best crop last year. So I may have to resort to some chemical aids. Because I didn't get a lot of big tomatoes last year. The plants look good all year, but then they petered out.
We felt that this might be where we would live for a long time.
We had stripped the wallpaper and then painted the whole thing, cleaned it.
Okay, and then we added the deck, and then we made the sunroof.
And we finished the attic off. That wasn't finished. We can do it ourselves. We do it ourselves.
Well, she's creative. She's
When
an
I was a
artist.
teenager, I painted my bedroom and all my furniture. I just like working with my hands and stuff. And
She sees these things, and then I look at them too, and together we use our creativity and come up with what you see.
we decorate with what we collect.
We like a lot of the same things. But generally, we always,
Work together.
our whole marriage was like, we usually come up with these ideas and then we think about it a little bit and then we usually agree. We never really got to the point where you had to have it a certain way.
And we just, every year we added to it. So that's a conglomeration of 30-some years. This is our Graceland.
This is our Graceland. This is our Twilight Zone. We like the community. Generally, it's a giving community. From the history of going back to 1741 and then seeing what progress was made over the years and the fact that people were involved in all that progress. If I could get involved, it might make a difference. I might try, or if I think I can make a difference. The community invites all this volunteerism, invites people speaking out. You want to add the energy to the positive stuff that's already there and just go with that flow. Now, if it wasn't out there, then we might be living somewhere else. You know, it's just that you're seeing all these things happen.
The river, a lot of that is the Kohler companies, and one of their hospitality businesses is River Wildlife, so you become a member and you can walk their paths. You can go down there, shoot pheasants, ride horses, fish off their land into the river, and that's still owned and retained by the Kohler family and Kohler company.
The village was incorporated about 1919. The original master plan was commissioned by Walter Kohler Sr. Walter J. wanted the original working men who were here to own their own homes. Most everybody had a privet hedge. The shingles all pretty much had to be black or gray. There was a little business district, had a post office and a grocery store. It's quite charming, and it is a twilight zone.
The original design, the designers were the same that designed the Central Park in New York City. If you look back at old pictures, there were these big flower gardens in a lot of the yards, and people took a lot of pride in that. And I think that was part of the original intent to have the garden community presentable. It didn't have to be a factory town with all your cookie cutter homes. Well, the company are 40% of our tax base, and they own all the land, so if we develop or there's anything major going on, Kohler always has their review of plans, changes, development, and make sure that it meets the Kohler expectation. A very high standard as far as expectations aesthetically, and you could not use, for example, in the Wood Lake subdivision, vinyl siding. It had to be either a natural or like the fiber boards that look like wood. So they have say, and they want to maintain the integrity of the design of the village as new construction takes place.
This is our home office, and it was originally carpeted, but we decided we wanted a different look. It was Mary's idea, actually. Maybe you could talk about that a little.
Because I spend a lot of time in here working on my newspaper, I kind of wanted it to look more like an office rather than a bedroom. And I also wanted kind of a richer, warmer feeling in here. So that's why I decided to go with the wooden floor. And then I had to decide between narrower slats of wood or the wider. And the guy at the flooring store said the wider is more elegant looking, so continuing with the theme of Kohler, I went with the more elegant looking wood.
If you can come home and you can feel uplifted and you can feel safe and stable, then when you go to work, I think you're more liable to stretch yourself and take chances and try to do things, because you know if it doesn't work out, if it's a disaster, I can always go back home and recover. Whereas if you had to go back home to a depressing neighborhood and maybe there's some unsavory characters on the corner, or your bike just got stolen, or you know you're just on edge, you've already been on edge at work, you just can't handle it, you know.
The design here is all about spontaneous socialization. So there's a lot of pedestrian walkways, the parking is on the periphery, and the idea is that you walk in and you look at what's for dinner, and then there's a joke that says it takes you half an hour and 2 beers to get from your car to your house. Then you know you live in co-housing because you walk through and you meet people on the way until you get home. That is not something that an architect in Boston is going to know how to do, because everybody is about maximizing privacy and minimizing meeting anybody. The Common House has home office space, it has a guest suite, it has a teenager rumpus room with ping pong and whatnot, it has common laundry, and it has a children's play area that's very large, and then it has an adult living room, library, and a big great room for weddings and parties, and a huge kitchen. So you design your units after you have your common house, because presumably your common house is going to solve some of the needs that you have so that you don't have to have them in your unit. We built the units with medium grade finishes, but we did put really nice, the best you can buy, the granite countertops and the dual range in the common house so that everybody can enjoy the high-end finishes. But in the units, we were able to keep costs down by doing medium grade. We have a value statement, a list of different things that are important to us. Promoting education for children, living lightly on the earth, interacting with the greater neighborhood, not being gated, transportation oriented, valuing diversity, mixed income. It blows my brother away. He comes here, he says, it's nice, but I couldn't do this. And then my cousin says, when can I move in? So it's not for everybody. But if it's for you, it's cool.
We never wanted to sell houses. We always wanted to sell lifestyle. This is really sort of middle America type of customer, middle income, middle class. And what we're trying to do is give them a Ritz-Carlton and Four Seasons experience in our community. And it's almost like the house is the price of admission to this wonderful life. It was really my vision. It's 17th century Spanish colonial Disneyland. Our original mission statement was to create the most affordable, highly amenitized community that enhances the lifestyle of our residents or the lives of our residents. We have a public lake with a park around it. We have a safari trail with life-size bronze animals. It's almost like a zoo. Adventure parks with miniature golf, little trains that people can get weekend rides, and tennis, and kids clubs, teen rooms, preteen rooms, sports bars, women's workout areas, schools, commercial, almost everything that would go into a small town. There's a whole social fabric that makes up this community. We have family events like a lake swim triathlon. We have our fishing festival because having water in the desert is unusual, and we worked out a deal with the state to stock the lake. So we give out free fishing rods, and people are taught how to fish by the state. We have holiday parties and movie nights. So every weekend in our adventure parks, we might have 800 people coming out to watch a family movie and picnic, and it's a great event. So creating that sense of community, that sense of place, has been the overall vision.
My wife was in the Air Force, and I was retired Air Force, stay-at-home dad. She was transferred to Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson. So I flew in one weekend, and my real estate agent said, I heard of this place, and we'll take a look. And I walked in thinking of my family, my girls, and it was sold, as they say. He started with a tagline, it's all in your backyard. I think of it as where you live and work and play and learn and now shop. The base offered the same thing, being a self-contained unit, as a lot of your military bases are, with shopping and tennis courts and basketball courts and swimming pools and all those types of things. And it gave me that same comfort factor. If I was away or she was away, you had a lot of the amenities, as a base does.
I wasn't a budding resident because I was an employee here. My husband was an Army brat who actually lived here as a child, and this base housed the 10th Group. It was a typical, traditional military lifestyle. There were so many amenities. We had the commissary, which was a great place to grocery shop. The PX, which was like going to a Macy's, but the prices were all about 35% less. The sports arena had sports going all the time. There was a teen club, the officers club that always had events, and even the NCO club and the enlisted club, the bowling alley, the golf course. There was theater, movie theaters with movies going all the time, and snack bars located all different places. There was lots of planned things. There were trips up to Vermont, canoeing and camping, and there was just a really good sense of leisure. When you're not working, there's plenty of stuff to do without ever leaving. I think it's all part of the quality of life. You know, they don't make a ton of money, so they need a lot of options that are reasonable that they can do right here. I don't think creativity is a word that often comes up when you refer to military life. There was a huge lack of privacy for the people who lived, especially in the tighter units. There's just always somebody around that you know or knows your husband. There's just zero privacy. And there wasn't a sense of ownership. Although there's this big sense of pride if you had one of the Colonel's row houses. I mean, those are beautiful, so you'd see more landscaping there and people who'd acquired a nice lifestyle by the time they got to that point. When the reuse plan was put into effect, number one reason businesses were leaving this state was because there was the lack of affordable housing and workforce housing, and housing prices were so high, and there's so little land left to develop. So here we are left with this nice big piece of property that we could really answer that problem in a lot of ways. So I think that was definitely our mentality, that let's be as creative as we can and get as much housing in as many different levels of housing that we can at Devon's. We don't want to repeat distinct groups of here's low income, here's high income, and make it more of a multi-dimensional neighborhood.
There's no scientific measure. How do you measure a sense of neighborhood? But I think you can measure it comparatively, though. Look at our neighbors. I think Harvard has a minimum lot size of 1 or 2 acres. So everyone's house is in the middle of their lot. Usually most people create some lawn, but then they leave a buffer of forest all around it. And it's nice, but you don't get to know your neighbors that much. I mean, the houses we were looking at here at Devon's on that same 1 or 2 acre lot in Harvard, we'd be looking at 6 units on an acre here at Devon's. And you'd be sharing a sidewalk, you'd be sharing an alley. So your kids would be playing in the alley together or out on the sidewalk. You'd have immediate neighbors, 2 on either side and possibly 3 across the street who would be close enough basically to say hello when you step out of your front door if you see them. I think there's just a sense that it would create those opportunities for informal social interaction that are really what kind of create a sense of community. I don't think that happens out on 2 acres.
Well, this lot over here was once called Tent City, where the homeless lived. They had the homeless here for at least about a year, from 9 months to a year. They lived here, and there was a big debate about it. And the people at the church over there, First Church, took the homeless and located them on their lawn. So they was located right on the church lawn after they were moved from here. Until now, they built more shelters. The shelter we've seen over there on Worthington Street is new. It's built to hold more people. Hey, what's going on? All this is drug stuff. Drugs and liquor stores. I remember when I first came to Springfield, I used to go there. Just get drunk and sit there. Stupid stuff. I've been away from this stuff for like 13 years, and it feels great. What? ¿Qué pasa?
I heard that you're moving out.
No, they told me I don't have to move. He's my neighbor. He lives upstairs. It's housing, senior citizen housing complex. I've been living there since '06, and ever since then I've been golden. Juan. Hey, Juan. Mi amigo, Juan.
He's my friend. He's my friend. Saito.
Okay, Juan. That's my old drunken buddy. When I cook, I always feed him. He go upstairs and get drunk. He barely eats, so I feed him. Take care of him. So yeah, you don't have to worry about nothing being taken from you around here. As far as getting robbed, going in your house or anything, won't happen. They watch out for you. It's their own community that, they protect. Where I'm from, projects in New Jersey is way rougher than these. I lived in the projects. You got 1 or 2 bedrooms with little steel pipes for your radiator. That was a little cold flat. That's the projects, and it goes all the way up. When I came here and I seen their projects, I said, these is not projects. They live in 2-family houses, duplexes, upstairs and downstairs, and they call them the projects. Projects? The project got upstairs and downstairs in it. Blew my mind.
Public housing was built as a transitional housing for people, and yet we have 3rd and 4th generations of families who have stayed there. Most public housing was built as superblocks. So you basically, through eminent domain or however it was done, put together a site. You tore out all the public streets, you built these superblocks, and you basically isolated a whole community of people because the buildings looked different. The neighborhood streets didn't go through the property anymore. So there was these very marked and isolated enclaves. The problem with public housing design is if you had a common stairwell, there were 12 families living off that common stairwell, which meant nobody owned that space. There were no private yard areas, so everything between buildings was common area. Well, it's common area. Who's taking care of it? Who owns it? Can you feel safe to be there? A lot of times what happened was these common spaces just got paved over because they were too difficult to take care of. And if you walk into some of these old units, you'd be shocked to see how little kitchen area there is. Tough to even find a place for a dining table. Windows that aren't really letting light in. It was a 22-foot deep box, and it was like a piece of spaghetti. You kind of turned it and angled it around, and so the size of the units wasn't appropriate. The basic design of the units wasn't appropriate. It didn't relate to the street, it didn't relate to the neighborhood, so it was just all wrong. And people understood that 40 years later. It was a new era of common sense principles of housing design and architecture.
Chelsea Neighborhood Developers is 30 years old. I was hired to develop affordable housing, and the core of our work is building the physical infrastructure of the neighborhood. But over the last few years, we've been developing a broader sense about how it is that you build healthy neighborhoods. And we think that it's got to have a good foundation in the design of the housing, in the right amenities. People have to have relationships with each other. They have to have relationships to their community. And people have to have a way to really have stable economic lives for it to be a good, healthy neighborhood. And so the properties are designed to encourage people to have both their own private life and a sense of community. There's nothing that feels like this is affordable housing. I don't think that you would ever sort of think that if you looked at it. Through our community engagement work, we've learned that low-income people benefit from living in mixed-income neighborhoods. But the challenge is that you have to make sure as you're improving a neighborhood that you really have a good base of deed-restricted affordable housing so that it doesn't entirely become a gentrified community. It's always the tension that how you protect the affordability while building in a little better market force. Part of staff job is to listen and to be hearing how people are responding to the built environment. We've done focus groups with residents that are as detailed as, do you like the flooring we use, to which rooms do you use the most, and what's too big and what's too small. And then when we do planning, we formally involve residents. And over the past 5 years, we've done 3 different types of neighborhood planning. The first one was very, very grassrootsy. We had groups of neighbors and block by block maps that showed every property, and people walked around and surveyed the properties, and we developed some understanding of the neighborhood that way and what was working, what doesn't. And then we've done a more formal group planning meeting with planners and architects. It was really lively discussion. People really enjoyed it. They felt like they were heard and talking about things that were so central to their lives. It just somehow really worked. And this led to our creating this community economic center that really responds to problems people are facing in accessing services that help them advance their economic life.
When you think of jails or prisons, they're isolated, they're remote. We say the fortress in the woods. We look at punishment from the standpoint that you're ostracized, you're being put away, there's little or nothing a society can do with you. You know, like we deal, I suppose, with mental health or substance abuse, retardation, you know, all these kind of things. There's a scar. You've been tarnished. So you're being put out to pasture, so to speak. Yet on the other hand, hey, they come from our streets, they come from our neighborhoods. They're coming back into our streets and our neighborhoods because over 98% of the inmates all come back. It's a very small percentage that are there that are doing life, if you will. So the question we always have to ask ourselves, how are they coming back? When you see illness and problems. You know, hospitals, you go there, obviously, and get a diagnosis and get a treatment plan and things like that. But plus, they're an integral part of the community. And very much, I think jails or prisons can be utilized that way, and that's what we're sort of demonstrating. The profile of a typical inmate is a 5th or 6th grade education. 85% come here with drug and alcohol issues. 70% have no jobs. 93% lack any kind of marketable skills. And how do you meet that? In general, I'm trying to do everything I can through staff, programs, curriculum. I'm trying to capture their mind and spirit. What's all behind it is valuing people, a sense of fairness regarding people. For all intents and purposes, people respond. You know, and that's common sense. How do we run the place? We have caseworkers that are inside to meet the unmet needs of the inmate every day, inside the pods, the correctional caseworker in uniform, and then as well developing aftercare plans as they're returning to the community. So from day one, the inmate, he's into a mandatory 5-week program, and it focuses in on responding to that deficit, you know, the substance abuse, the anger management. As soon as they're done that 5-week program, now I move them into specialized kind of program, remedial education, GED, vocational training. These are all intense, comprehensive, and then they can have the potential, the opportunity, if they've earned it, of then moving into lower security. Now they go to the pre-release center. Again, an orientation program. And it's not to be redundant. It's a continuation. We call it this continuum that we have. We're trying to challenge people. You know, if you truly respect and value people, you're trying to challenge them. We've always, and I feel strongly, hey, let's get the inmates working, busy, doing constructive, substantive things in the community. So, for example, I have 16 crews out today that are out doing good work in the community. And when I talk about a partnership, take, for example, there's a factory in Springfield. It's been sitting there dormant for 5, 6, 7 years. And it's now, there's gangs, there's drugs, there's sex that going on every day. So the city steps in. They raise the building, they turn around, they give it to Habitat for Humanity for $1. So Habitat Humanity is built on a sense of volunteerism. Well, you and I know that volunteerism only goes so far. So now all of a sudden the sheriff's department steps in. We bring a construction trade, we bring a will, we bring an effort. And that property, we built 6 homes, again, with the partnership with Habitat for Humanity. Here we have the lives of these people who, based on their own self-determination, has been ridden with poor self-image, addiction, or whatever the term may be, but for a good 95% of the age, basically, they want to do the right thing. So if I can challenge them right in my mind, okay, I know they're going to step up.
My name is Yusuf Dean, and I got arrested in '89, and my marriage went sour after that. My uncles and them sent me out here because I was running havoc in Jersey, and they was like, you're not gonna go back to jail, we're gonna get you out of here. So they said, take this money, get on a bus, go to Massachusetts. So I came out here. Didn't get any better because I was still heartbroken, missing my children, my wife. So I still stayed into the same lifestyle, drugs, alcohol, violence, everything out in the streets. And I got locked up a couple times, short stints, 6 months, 18 months, until one time, and I get a 5 to 7, and it was just assault and battery. So that was the greatest amount of time I've ever gotten in my life. So I was like, you know, so upset. So one day the sheriff gave this speech, Martin Luther King Day, Sheriff Ash. He said, I challenge you all in the inmate population that if you get out and do the right thing and you come to me, I'll give you a job. And I was like, well, the state has taken 6 years of my life. The state is going to get me a job when I get out. So I started going to school inside. They had college. And I got like 68 credits by the time I got out. So when I got out of Ludlow, went on to Westfield State College and I majored in sociology. And I got accepted into UConn, a master's program, studying a master's social work. When I graduated, I finally get my application ready to get hired. While I'm waiting, Jen calls me. She said, oh, Yusuf, I want you to come in. I got somebody for you to meet. So I said, sure. I come in. It's Molly. She's interviewing me. Never in my wildest dreams would I had thought for a director's position. I'm reading through her stuff and some awesome stuff, and it's good work. And it's something that I've been dying to do. And it's a younger age group that I could, I think, really make an impact on. I said, sure, I'll do it. So now I'm assistant director of Roca Springfield. Our mission is to move disengaged, disenfranchised young people out of violence and poverty. We meet them on the street corner. We say, look, we got a program that we're gonna help you guys try and turn your lives around. They're like, no, forget you, leave me alone. Please, I'm not interested in your program. Your program doesn't have anything to offer me. I'm making more money out here on these corners. Please leave me alone. But we don't do that. We keep coming to you, you know what I mean? Because you never have people just keep on bugging you and wanting to help you change. So it's something different that they're unused to. Well, you actually got participants that live in that house right there. A lot of gangs around here. A little kid there looks like he's a drug dealer. It's amazing the things that goes on, right? And the police are right there. What's going on, man? Where my boys, you ain't see them? Huh?
What's that about?
This about my program, coming to help you guys out. When we come through here, that's one of the gentlemen that we frequent because he's a user slash drug dealer. He does the running to get, things to stay high off. And he's always here. He's homeless because he chooses to be, and it's the life that he lives. So, he know. That's why I said, are you teaching him how to film? Because he know me from coming here. I'm saying, nah, this is about the program, Roca. So he already knows because many times we come through the block to get him. One of the youth workers went out a few times. The guy, until they got into like a screaming match, because the guy was like, leave me alone. Until another youth worker stepped in and said, no, we're not gonna leave you alone because we love you. And that got him here. So now, after we get him to maybe, we have him coming out here, then we get him to start planning things that he wants to do in order to change his life. We ask him, well, what do you guys want? You're gonna build the culture. So we allow them to suggest the things that they'd like to do to keep them out of the streets. One thing that they wanted to do was Xbox. So we had them in Xbox on a Friday night, which was good. So one guy comes to the office, he said, can I speak to you for a little while? So I said, sure. So we're sitting down, we're speaking to Vaughn and myself, and he's saying, well, look, man, you guys, I need to do some resume stuff. So these are the plans that they want to do. So he said, I don't know how to do a resume. I've never had a resume. So that's why we have the small computer room on the side to begin to teach him things that they want to do. And it's his planning. It's not us planning. He's planning for himself. And we just walk him through the stages. And the action part of it is when he gets there and actually starts sitting in and preparing his own resume. We have a transition employment program. We get contracts with outside agencies, like say the city. They'll pay us to do work. We'll have a crew of 7 young men and a crew supervisor, and we'll go wherever they want us to go. Clean up, painting, whatever. We pay the young people $8,000 an hour. And we got a process where you can get fired, but you maybe get fired because you're getting high. You're not coming to work, no call, no show, walk off the job because you got a drug sale. So all these things are write-ups. 3 write-ups, you're fired, but you can get rehired. We have intentional conversations to help you change. I say, well, for instance, I want the job, so we get them the job, but they don't want to work on the substance abuse issue they have. So we're saying now, the substance abuse issue got them fired. So we're saying, what do you think you need to do in order for you to keep your job? Now, it's on you, but that's the MI. So now you're telling me, but you're hearing yourself what you need to do to work on yourself. But we're teaching you how to work. We can say, look, you got to do 2 NA meetings, got to go to a couple of GD classes. Then we'll put you back on the rehire list so we don't get rid of you because the program is for 3 to 5 years. So we're working with Go Green partners. We're doing a lot of things with other people who will employ us, our guys, because they're going to trust in our agency. So the job got an extra force with us to help them keep the employee. As Roca is today, a third of Roca's employees have been participants, and another third are people that have been in trouble with the law. And that's what makes it work, because most of them, they were those troubled kids. Now they want to help. They want to give back. So that's what we plan on growing here. Kids coming from the program and joining the staff. Who better to teach someone than someone who's been there? There will always be this demographic, youth, they're growing without parents. There's babies making babies, so they're going to be running wild and woolly, and they're going to need someone to parent them. Roca is just parents, and these are our children because they have no parents. So that's always going to be needed to make society better. We're always going to have to raise someone else's child because most of them don't have parents. Their parents are drug addicts, alcoholics, so they need some TLC. We're here to give them that TLC and send them on their way as good adults in society. So I got no problem doing this for 20, 30, 40 years. If I can get up and go do it, I'll do it. When you see one of them succeed, no greater reward to see a person who walking these streets, selling drugs and everything, then the next time you see them, they got a shirt and tie on and they got a great job. That's priceless stuff. I'm a product of the Sheriff's Department. I have a master's degree. So it works. if you want it to work, the individual. And just like Roka, but we know it works if we stay in it for the long haul. We change with the children. We grow as they grow. You're changing individuals, which in turn changes communities, which in turn change societies. And you also evolve with that yourself. Because as things change, you change also as a worker. Because as things outside in the communities change and these young people change, you change with them. For the better, of course. So that's my story.
I think corrections is the business of creating public safety. And reentry, when done well, is the best public safety that you can realize. We talk in prisons about the concept of healing environments. You have to create healing environments, places where offenders can learn to interact. And when they leave those places, the things that they learn there are transferable to the community at large and will serve them well in a pro-social manner. The normative design basically refers to creating environments that are similar to what's out there in society, to the norms of society. And we have spoken about that now for a long, long time, that within the prisons we ought to create environments that are similar to the environments to which the offenders are going to return, society at large. In most locations, the design and architecture of prisons is also one that fits in well with the environment and the community. As a matter of fact, in Nebraska, we built a facility that received a Community Beautification Award. It helped to enhance the atmosphere in the community. It was just built to fit in with the environment and to not stand out as an institution. You will never believe it's a correctional facility. It just fits in well with the ecology and the environment and everything else. So that's another aspect of the design as well. In addition to the security pieces and the programming and observation and so forth, well, the facade, the outside of the building is also been designed to fit into the environment where you're putting it. Mm-hmm. It goes back, I think, to being pleasing to the community on the outside. They don't have this albatross sticking up out there. Additionally, the people who work there, you know, you feel better going into that facility as well. Oh yeah, you got to feel good about your environment.
They were quoting the sheriff about not celebrating building a building like this. It's a negative, okay? Hey guys, it's a great time to get into reentry and further this philosophy. Except that the economic times are cutting the resources out there that we need in the community. But I don't want to close those things. I want to close the county jails so that you're able to bring in all those resources into the community or directly. But we have facilitated with a public health model, the Community Corrections Center, the Howard Street that wasn't in place there, that all the thing, and these things are flourishing. And we're going to keep doing that. We keep building and helping that community agencies. We go in and do work with our restitution groups, get them started. Exchange for that, give us access to the beds, these sober houses and all that. We're doing those all the time. And then we're building actual homes for families. And we're into that housing for the homeless. And then what we want to do is we create a family from one of our inmates and put them in there and get them a mortgage in the HUD housing. And that'll be built by our inmates and our restitution. We're doing that for Habitat and we're assisting other agencies. So there's your architecture. We're just pushing it all out in the community. Maybe we'll get lucky and close one of those buildings in the next year. That's our objective.